Here's a full, cinematic, and emotionally rich story based on your title, tailored for an 1,800-word YouTube video format with the requested calls to action. I've crafted it in part 1 only, fully self-contained. The night was colder than usual, with a bitter wind slicing through the city streets like invisible knives. Neon signs flickered overhead, struggling against the dark, heavy sky. In the midst of this urban chaos, a small, worn-down fast food joint stood like an oasis for the hungry, the tired, and the lonely. Inside, the golden smell of fries and fried chicken mingled with the scent of desperation, a strange combination that spoke to both comfort and survival. It was here, at this unremarkable counter, that a small act of kindness would set off a chain of events neither the giver nor the receiver could have ever imagined. She stood in line, barely tall enough to see over the counter, her hands gripping a crumpled bag that once held groceries. Her face was tired, etched with worry lines far beyond her years. Her son clutched her hand, eyes wide, staring longingly at the trays of fries and burgers passing by. The boy's stomach rumbled audibly, a sharp reminder of their empty pantry at home. She had only enough money to buy a single meal, and even then, it barely covered her son's small appetite. Yet, she smiled, forcing warmth into her weary expression. When she reached the counter, she hesitated, glancing nervously at the young man taking orders. His uniform was neat, his smile automatic but kind. She swallowed hard and asked, her voice trembling slightly, "Can we share your fries, sir?" The words were simple, but they carried the weight of her struggle, her sleepless nights, and her relentless efforts to provide even the smallest comfort to the child she loved more than life itself. The young man looked down at the tiny boy, at the woman who seemed to be fighting the world with nothing but hope in her eyes, and something shifted in him. He smiled genuinely and nodded. "Of course. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel because stories like this remind us that even small gestures can change lives." He handed over an extra tray of fries, his eyes meeting hers for just a brief moment. "On the house," he said softly. She couldn't stop the tears that pricked her eyes. Her son grinned, grabbing a fry with trembling little hands, savoring each golden bite as if it were a treasure. She watched him, her heart swelling with relief and gratitude. In that fleeting instant, she felt a sense of safety she hadn't known in weeks. She thanked him, her voice barely above a whisper, and they sat in a corner booth, the boy devouring his fries while she nibbled at the one she had bought. Outside, the city seemed harsher than ever, but inside, the warmth of shared humanity created a bubble of hope. For her, this simple act of generosity was monumental. Little did she know, this encounter was about to change everything. The young man behind the counter returned to his station, his phone vibrating quietly in his pocket. He glanced down and, almost absent-mindedly, opened an email. His eyes widened as he read the message, his heart pounding. He had come into this job temporarily, hoping to stay grounded, to experience a life outside his gilded walls. Yet, the email reminded him of the life most would only dream of. He was a billionaire, not just wealthy, but unimaginably rich, a man whose name alone could move markets and command headlines. He watched the mother and child through the counter window, thinking about how easy it would have been to walk past them, to ignore the small plea for help. But something inside him had stopped him, compassion maybe, or an unspoken understanding of struggle. Perhaps it was the mirror of his own childhood, the memory of nights when money was scarce, when a small kindness could mean the difference between despair and hope. As the evening wore on, the woman and her son left the restaurant, the boy holding her hand tightly. She didn't know his true identity, never suspecting that the man who had handed her hope on a tray of fries was someone whose wealth could have solved every problem she faced overnight. She only knew that, for a few moments, the world had felt safe again. The next morning, life returned to its relentless pace. Bills needed to be paid, her landlord was demanding rent, and the fear of eviction loomed over her like a dark cloud. Yet, a spark had been ignited, a reminder that even in the coldest times, warmth could be found in human connection. That spark led her to apply for a small community grant, a tiny hope she clung to as she navigated through a day of uncertainty. Meanwhile, the young billionaire couldn't shake the image of the small family from his mind. He thought about their struggle, the boy's earnest expression, the woman's quiet dignity despite her circumstances. He decided to take a step that surprised even himself. Using his influence, he discreetly arranged for their rent to be covered for the next 6 months. Without any strings attached, he set up a small scholarship fund for the boy's education and ensured that the woman received a modest, stable income from a community program. Weeks passed, and life began to shift subtly for the woman and her son. The constant anxiety over money lessened, replaced by a cautious optimism she hadn't felt in years. Her son's laughter returned, filling their small apartment with the kind of music that makes a home feel alive. And yet, she remained unaware of the identity of the man who had touched their lives so profoundly. She only knew that somehow, their lives had been steadied by an invisible hand. One chilly evening, as she walked through the park with her son, they stumbled upon a fundraiser for underprivileged children. Volunteers handed out food, books, and small gifts. She approached one of the organizers, curious about the initiative. To her astonishment, the young man from the fast food joint stood there, smiling warmly, wearing a casual shirt and jeans instead of a business suit. He recognized her immediately and waved her over. When she saw him, she was taken aback. It's you, she stammered. The fries. He nodded gently, his eyes filled with a kind of quiet pride. I remember, he said. I just wanted to help. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized the truth. Her words caught in her throat, unable to form themselves into the phrase she feared to speak. You're a billionaire. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. That doesn't matter. None of that matters when it comes to kindness. I just saw you and your son and wanted to help. The revelation left her speechless. She had imagined a kind stranger, perhaps a friend or a neighbor, but never someone with such unimaginable wealth and influence. Yet here he was, ordinary in demeanor, extraordinary in compassion. That combination made her heart swell with gratitude and disbelief. From that moment, their lives intertwined in unexpected ways. The young man whose name now carried weight in financial circles continued to provide discreet support, ensuring the boy received an excellent education and opportunities that his mother had only dreamed of. More importantly, he treated them with respect, without the patronizing tone that often accompanied charity. He understood dignity, and he honored it. Years later, the boy would look back on that night at the fast food joint as a turning point, the moment that set the course of his life on a trajectory of hope and possibility. The mother would remember the warmth in the young man's eyes and the simple words that had changed their world. And the billionaire, for his part, would recall the power of a small act of kindness, a reminder that true wealth is measured not in dollars, but in the lives you touch and the love you share. Sometimes, it takes just a single moment, a single decision, to alter the path of someone's life forever. A simple question, a timid voice asking, "Can we share your fries, sir?" became the catalyst for change, proving that compassion knows no boundaries, no wealth, no status. It exists in the quiet courage of those willing to care for strangers, and in the openness of those willing to answer. If this story touched your heart, please engage with the video, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more stories of kindness and humanity reach the people who need them most. Before you go, I'd love for you to leave a comment and tell us about a time when a small act of kindness changed your life, just like it did for this mother and her son. In a world that often seems cold and indifferent, It's easy to forget that humanity survives in these fleeting moments of empathy. But every time someone reaches out with compassion, they ignite hope, inspire courage, and remind us that no one is truly alone. The fries shared that night were more than just food. They were a lifeline, a reminder that kindness is the most valuable currency of all. And so, life moved forward, richer not in money, but in gratitude, love, and the quiet power of a single selfless act. That small, dramatic question, the one that began it all, echoed in hearts far beyond the walls of a humble fast food restaurant, leaving an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it, or heard the story, or dared to believe that a little kindness could change the world.